Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, COVID, well-being, resilience, crisis management, anything that's relatable to those topics, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. As always, I invite anyone who wants to be a guest to come on the show. Please feel free, reach out on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there, so I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Today, I am going to be talking with two guests I've been waiting to talk to for a while about an article they published, Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. I know it's going to be a really interesting conversation. I've got a bunch of questions for them. A couple I only came up with before the show, so they don't even know I'm going to ask them yet. But I'd like to welcome to the show Milena Maneva and Lisa Jones. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
My pleasure.
To be here.
Milena is joining us from the UK, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep, and Lisa, I know is, I think you're in the same time zone as me, Eastern Standard Time Zone, right?
Yes, I am. I'm right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, actually, you're not that far away. I've driven there in a couple of hours, so you're not that far. Well, before we jump into your article and start getting into some of the specifics of what you talked about, can you take a moment to introduce yourselves? Milena, we'll start with you because you're the farthest away.
Sure. Hi, Alex. Can I say I'm just a huge fan of your shows and what you do, and I'm really pleased to be here and speak to you and Lisa about our article, Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. For those that don't know me, my name is Milena Maneva. I'm based in London, UK, and I'm currently a Business Continuity Management Lead for Cantor Fitzgerald and BGC Partners. I look after the EMEA region, and I'm also the co-founder of the Resilience Think Tank, along with Lisa, Jones, Mark Hoffman, James Green. Most of you know that James is often a presenter and speaker at with Alex at Preparing for the Unexpected. And we also have Andreas Bryan, who is also based in the UK, and we have Ashley Guzman, who is based in the States. I'm also on the committee for the Business Continuity Institute, Women in Resilience Group, where we empower, connect, and support women in the resilience industry to become leaders and advance in their careers. I like to think of myself as an ambassador for everything to do with risk and resilience. I was raised in a close proximity to a nuclear power plant, where I became aware of the value of monthly drills as a child. As you can tell from my accent, I was raised in Bulgaria, Russia, and Cyprus. What brought me to the industry, it all started with an incident at a naval base in Cyprus back in 2011, when I was still studying and working as a financial risk officer monitoring electronic trading portfolios. On what should have been a normal working day, it turned out to be anything but normal when a massive explosion from the naval base caused a blackout on the entire island. This severe disruption was further compounded by an acute shortage of generators in the country, which made a quick recovery extremely difficult. Many businesses, including my company, experienced continued electricity outages, which lasted for more than 2 months after that blast. And that's in the middle of a very hot summer. I couldn't believe how unprepared organizations were for such events, and the whole experience helped me to see how important resilience and preparedness is. With that very much in the back of my mind, I pursued my master's in risk management and relocated to London, where I learned about business continuity and never looked back.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to the show. Lisa, how about yourself?
So that's a hard act to follow, but I'll try. So my name is Lisa Jones, and unlike Alex, there are a lot of Lisa Jones on LinkedIn, but feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I love to be in contact with and network with individuals who are in this space, as well as anyone who's just interested in business continuity and resilience. Just like Milena said, I'm a co-founder of the think tank. I've been in the industry for about 14 years, mainly in the healthcare, insurance, and provider space. I worked for an insurance company and then moved to working for a hospital. And recently I've worked in the distribution and manufacturing industry. And now I'm a consultant with the Italian consulting company and working on different various projects. So consulting is a new gig for me. So I'm very excited in what I'm doing. I also currently am the president of the BCI USA chapter, as well as a technical leader for the review of the good practice guidelines for BCI. For me, getting into this industry was kind of a fluke, and like most of us, or some of us, we kind of just got told to do it. And I started out as an administrative assistant. It piqued my interest of what the heck was business continuity, and then just grew into the industry, and just love the support and the networking that I've been able to, that has helped me grow into the person I am, and this career leader that people think I am, but I truly appreciate it. So I am happy to be here with Alex. And Alex, I enjoy all the work that you're doing. So love it.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the kind words from both of you. And I'm honored to have both industry leaders, as you say, to my show. So I'm quite happy to share this time with you. And thank you very much. Now, let's jump into your article, Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. My first question, see, it doesn't take long for me to go off script at all. Never does. I know we have an agenda, but beforehand, I was thinking of a question because I was reading a posting on LinkedIn from somebody that I actually don't know yet, but they kind of mentioned with articulating value, and it got me thinking about what you were writing about. Are we trying to articulate the value of the business continuity professional or ourselves, or the business continuity industry? What are your thoughts on that? Because I found the way this person was writing rather interesting. So I thought I'd reach out and ask you that.
Okay, so are we articulating value for ourselves or for the industry? Well, honestly, I will say this is probably both. I think as an industry, and Milena, you can chime in on this, but I think as an industry, we have gotten lost in the sauce, per se. I will say that, and I'm be the first to say it. We have gotten lost in what truly is business continuity. I think we've allowed other industries to define who we are, maybe even take some of the things that we do and call it business continuity. But our true business continuity industry is at a tipping point of, okay, who are we truly as an industry? I mean, be honest. When you go and tell your family or friend what you do you truly have a simplistic definition of what you do? And do people truly understand what you do? And I think that's where we are when we talk about articulating value of the industry. As a person or as a professional or as a practitioner ourselves, it depends on where we fall within an organization and how we can say who we are. And again, it goes back to, we were originally IT people who decided to do business continuity. We are risk people who have decided to do business continuity. And depending on your organization, whether you're regulatory or whether you're just a nice to have, we have to be able to say to our business, this is who we are. This is the value we're providing and why we are important for you to listen to us.
Mm-hmm. Milena, anything to add?
Yes, I would like to mention that we wrote this article in conjunction to our resilience think tank co-founders. Without them, this article wouldn't have been possible. And the reason we wrote it is because Mark Hoffman came to us, to all five of us, and asked us to contribute and give back to our industry, to give back to the profession and to help others articulate their value, because many professionals in the business continuity or resilience field struggled to articulate their value and what they do to their employer. So we gathered, all six of us gathered, and we discussed all these important points of what is actually crucial and important to keep and remember and obviously bring to our employers, and of course bring that value that will then provide our organization with that resilience.
Well, thank you for that. I just thought I'd throw that question out there because of that post that I read the other day. So and knowing that I was going to be talking with the both of you about this, and I thought, oh, I'm just kind of curious to hear what they'd have to say on that.
Well,
So now
I think it, I
go
was just
ahead.
going to say, I just think that is the hot topic of the day is we're always constantly looking at ourselves to say, where's business continuity where's business continuity sit in the organization? What is the importance of business continuity? Now we're talking about resilience and operational resilience and organizational resilience. And is there still a need for business continuity? And that's why I think we have to revisit this topic and, truly put our stake in the ground and say who we are.
It's interesting you said that, because I get the same feeling that because we're using the word resilience now all the time, and operational resilience, and then in other conversations there's organizational resilience, that some groups are now kind of being I don't want to say pushed to the wayside, but they're kind of getting their name changed almost to these resilience people, but they're actually business continuity people. But business continuity contributes to resilience. So it's this kind of a loop that confuses people.
Yes. Yep. I think we even confuse ourselves.
I think so too.
I must say there's so many definitions out there that they make it really hard. A lot of the organizations and institutes are coming with their own kind of definitions of what resilience or continuity means, and how do we define it. And then we end up with the responsibility to translate that to our senior management and executives. What does this mean? Everyone knows what cybersecurity is and why we do it, and that gets you through the door. But essentially, how can we explain continuity? Resilience is obviously that buzzword which is widely understood, and perhaps that's why we are absorbed in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of both touched on something, because we're going to jump into the article, the specifics now. I want to start with something that you have in there. BC practitioners, or business continuity practitioners, should expose themselves to other disciplines. Well, what kind of other disciplines are we talking about? Lisa, Maneva, who wants to go first?
So, I will say that there are so many different things that, as professionals, we are exposed to just within an organization in general. So we have the opportunity to have that 40-foot view of what the organization is, and to understand the thought process or the culture of an organization. So with that power, I say, because we have that power, we can use various disciplines to address the issues for an organization. I'll give you an example. So as a manufacturing and distribution organizations, they tend to think more crisis management focused. So why not understand the difference between crisis management and business continuity? There are elements that are the same, but there are some very different things that need to be a part of a program when you're designing for that type of industry. From a healthcare.
Sorry to cut you off. Do you mean instead of getting crisis management to align to what our thoughts of business continuity is, align business continuity to existing crisis management? Is that what you mean?
If that fits the program. And I think, and I think that's another thing that we don't talk about, or we do talk about, is the fact that as the business continuity industry, we have aligned our programs or designed our programs to fit an organization, which we should do anyway. I think it's hard to take stringent practices to an organization that let's be in all honesty, may not even need half the things that we have learned from our profession. And any way that you can show that this can help their organization, why not? So taking things from cybersecurity, taking things from risk management, taking some elements and ideas from crisis management, emergency management to help your organization sustain and be resilient. I think that's a thing that I think we need to strive to do.
Okay. Milena?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Lisa. We have such a broad perspective of our business and our industry that we can remove those silos, we can bridge those gaps, and we can enable those strategic choices and informed decision making at every level of the organization. And what we will notice is a lot of what is coming now from the operational resilience policy and requirements. A lot of support is required from us as business continuity professionals to provide the information that we already have and that overview of everything that each department is doing. And for example, in the financial services sector, I often work with our technology teams, with our infrastructure teams, with our cybersecurity teams, to make sure that we are aligned in how we use the language and how we communicate that to our senior management. Because at the end of the day, they're sponsoring the program. We need their buy-in to create that resilience and continuity within what we do. So working with everyone in the organization will benefit us. Empowering our people, regardless of their level in the organization, is I guess continuity and resilience should be everyone's responsibility. And this is what we should do. It starts with commitment and awareness.
It's kind of like all these different groups have a bunch of pieces of a puzzle, and you have to bring them all together to bring all those pieces together and then find out, the picture is a farmyard. And that group had the cow, that group had the dog.
Yes.
But you don't know that until you bring them all together and how they all fit, right?
Exactly.
Well, on that, we've come to the end of our first segment. We're talking with Lisa Jones and Milena Maneva of the Resilience Think Tank and the authors of Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Today, we are talking with Lisa Jones and Milena Maneva, authors of Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. Great first segment, lots of good information and comments there. We ended the first segment talking about breaking down silos and bringing all these different groups together and being a part of it. So I'm curious to know what your suggestions or thoughts might be on how we go about doing that. It's one thing to say we need to do, but a lot of people are still struggling with how do we do that? Because a lot of managers, leaders, they have their own silos. They have their little mini empires, and thou shalt not cross, into my territory. So,
oh boy,
yeah, exactly. So, how do we go? What are your suggestions on how we can help bring down those walls and get rid of those silos?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first on this one?
I will start with this one because this one is always near and dear to my heart. There are several ways to do it. There's a formal way, which is, go start with sponsorship and buy-in from the top, and because they carry the big stick, so they can, kind of make it mandatory for others to help you. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you need maybe even a three-prong approach. So not only just having a sponsor and having leadership kind of drive it, you also need to start from the bottom up, start with those doers that actually do the job and kind of talk to them. They're always wanting to share information, even though they may seem a little timid at first. But anytime they're willing to talk to you, take advantage of it. And then the third approach is this, if you have those two, sometimes the middle person, that middle management, sometimes can also help drive the breaking down of silos. So an example I have is that we had an organization in the insurance company that I was working with. Claims was a very critical process. We know that claims have to be paid, or you don't get the money. You won't get the
I
money.
remember that when I did insurance stuff. So
yes, so if you don't get the money, you're not going to get paid. But one thing that they talked about how, although I would say 80% of the claims were electronic, there was about 20% of claims that came in through the mail. But the mailroom wasn't considered to be critical. But no one told the mailroom, because no one told the mailroom that they were critical. we were going to lose some of these claims. So just by having that discussion and be able to take that to the mailroom to say, oh, by the way, claim said this, and you're like, oh, really? We actually need people. I was able to bridge the gap to have that conversation. But if you don't talk about it, then we've never known. We've never known that this thing, these claims, God forbid, if something was to happen, would not have been processed. So it's talking to, getting that buy-in from leadership, if you can, talking to the doers who told me, oh yeah, by the way, claims come through the mail. That was a good catch. And also talking to those managers and bringing them together to say, oh yeah, by the way, you two are dependent upon each other. Let's find a solution for that. So it takes many avenues to kind of get those silos to come down.
Milena?
Great points, Lisa. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is building relationships. We should build those allies across all departments, and we should be able to promote, speak up, and sell what we do for our organization. We should also remove any, we should communicate according to the style and culture of our organization. In fact, we should become partner. We can solve issues by building those relationships, and by shadowing. Perhaps we can work together on different projects. We can resolve some of the challenges that they have, and that's how we can create those allies. And I guess sponsors, as Lisa mentioned. And this is what we need to do. What we can do differently is we need to know how to rapidly assess our organization and how to get to the point, and understand how we can get those quick wins. That will definitely be my advice.
Yeah.
I guess taking into account what you both said, it's like going after the people, not going after, I don't mean in a bad way, but approaching the people that are receptive to what you do and what we're trying to accomplish. And then those that aren't receptive, that want to stay in their silos, will eventually, fall into place, so to speak, because they'll say, hey, how come these other groups are better prepared than I am? Shouldn't I be as prepared? And eventually they start coming on board. Oh, I see what you're doing. Oh, we've had that issue for ages and you helped resolve that. Well, I've got an issue. Maybe you could help me, right? And
exactly.
And I think it's part of what you both said earlier on too, is adapting to the organization. And I think, I can't remember, my apologies, but one of you actually used the word culture, using that as well to help move things along, right?
Because I think it'll always come down to the culture. There are some organizations where the business continuity professional has to come in and just show that they're non-threatening. Because again, when it comes to the silos, people are very protective of what they do, and they look at you as pointing a finger saying they're doing something wrong. And we're not trying to point the finger to that you're doing something wrong. We just want to help you ensure that you can stay in that position that you're in. We want to ensure that that we are championing for you as well as we're championing for the business continuity program as a whole. There are some organizations where threat tactics can be used. I mean, if you're a regulated entity, then you can truly point to a regulation and say, we have to make sure that we meet this regulation. And that'll work in some instances, but it's a 50-50 chance depending upon what kind of organization you're in. I'm working in an industry that's not really regulated. So this is a kind of a nice to have. How do we sell this? But if I'm in an industry like financials, we know that there are certain regulations that we have to meet. So it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue that we have to argue to have this done.
Yeah. Milena, anything to add?
And if I may add, you need to be able to understand the motivation of others, to be able to inspire them to strive for their best and help to achieve desired outcomes. Of course, self-confidence is crucial. So without that, we cannot enter a room full of senior stakeholders and influence them to what's the right thing to do, as opposed to a compliance tick box exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sadly, that's what I think a lot of people still see business continuity as. A tick box. Do you have a program or do you have a quote plan? Oh, good, then you're done. But meanwhile, the plan could contain absolutely nothing of relevance.
Yes.
But you passed the audit.
Yeah, there you go.
So you mentioned that actually, I think, Lisa, I believe it was you in the first segment. How should we align to our organization? And because you have an interest in your article, Milena, Lisa, business continuity planning is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So, and then you talk about a lot if we're aligned to a standard or should we be following a standard, which got me thinking of another question that's not in our little agenda here. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on standards? Should we follow one or adopt one or take the best of many? Milena, why don't you go first on this one?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it troubles a lot of professionals. But the first question we should ask ourselves is, does this fit our organization? Regardless of the standard we use, or if we're aligned to, let's say, the ISO 2301 or any of the standards for resilience or business continuity, we should ask ourselves, does this fit our organization? Does this I guess, align to what my organization makes money in, and how can I protect that? What is the risk tolerance for our organization as well? And do I understand it? These are the questions that can answer some of the topics that relate to the standards.
Lisa?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think you need some framework to start with. So regardless of whether standard you may use, whether it's the good practice guidelines from BCI that you're using, whether it's DRI's best practices, you at least need a foundation to start with. And as you adopt that framework or whatever that framework or that standard, you can align it with your organization. Again, there may be pieces within certain frameworks that don't apply. And there's no need for you to try to push it through just to have and nice to have. But there are certain things that can be a benefit to all organizations. Things like a BIA, ensuring, because you need a BIA to understand what your program is. You need to know, what is those key critical things that an organization wants to protect. You need to understand if those are the key things that need to be protected. What is the data that is connected or dependent upon those things? So you do need some type of framework. I'm not against a standard. I think standards help kind of design your program, but ultimately you need to align that program, that standard to your program, take out things that don't work, adopt those things that do.
I agree with you both. I think standards are created usually because what came before it was missing something, had a hole in it. So a new standard comes out, and then another one comes out to address something that came before it in a different way. So I think different standards and guidelines that are out there can all be beneficial. I'm not totally sold on the idea of following one and one only because of one of the other things that you mentioned earlier, the culture.
Right.
If we're not built to do a 6-month BIA project, why are we doing it when I can get the same information a different way? It's just not called a BIA.
Exactly. Yeah.
If that works in our organization and we still get the same result, well, then why do I need to follow what's in the standards, right?
Yeah, and I also think that we have a tendency, and I could be one of those people. I don't think I am, but you can call me on it. But we have a tendency to tell people they're wrong when they're doing something. Every program is different. And just because I may do a 6-month BIA doesn't mean that I'm wrong because you do a 2-week BIA. We're all, again, still getting the same results, still getting the information that we need. There are many flavors of how to do things. Just adopting the right flavor that works for your organization is key.
Helena, anything?
And if I may add, yes, I guess business continuity professionals should not be afraid to think outside of the box and review and reshape their program. it always baffled me that when a new person joins the team, they're told to do exactly what was done 5, 10, 20 years ago, and then they keep exactly the same process without deviating, even though our organization and the environment we are in continuously evolves. So it's really strange to me that we're not allowing even our own team members to actually think outside of the box and experiment of what actually works for our organization.
Mhm. If you do the same thing over and over, you'll get the same results over and over. Meanwhile, your organization is changing, it's growing, it may have new products and services. Well, if you're doing the same thing and not adapting to the organization, you are distancing yourself, and what you
Exactly.
do, and people will see less and less relevance in what you're doing.
And that's what COVID did. COVID changed the way we look at our data. COVID has changed the way that we look at processes. Companies had to pivot in what their critical processes were before COVID, and things that they thought weren't critical or the way they did things, they literally had to change. So this is the time to say, okay, well, I guess anything and everything is fair game at this point.
But it told us, what we thought was critical might not have been. And what
Exactly.
was critical, we have to keep doing. And things that we didn't even give a second thought to, all of a sudden was a little piece of glue that held all these different pieces together. Suddenly it's up the priority list.
So true. Oh my goodness. Yes.
It sounds a little bit too that the business continuity professional is kind of a reflection of the culture of the organization. You have to adapt to what your leadership is expecting and where they're going, and you have to try and bring all these different, for lack of a better term, the plans on all the things you work on with that, and they have to change and adapt. And the business continuity professional is the person that helps make all that happen, brings all that people together, is the person that does all the networking, to bring all the pieces together, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we look at every business function. We do these BIAs to kind of understand the relationship of how that how this thing works within an organization. We talk to so many different people, whether it's like you said, the cybersecurity department, or or IT, the human resources, crisis communication, and then just the doers, whatever those processes, the people that make the widgets. We have access to all those things, and our job is to really take all that information, consolidate it in a way that could be digestible to our leadership. So it's important to understand, have those skills that could be able to do that. Now, I will say, and I think I don't know if I said this in the article, but sometimes we are not always, we may not be the spokesperson, but we need to provide that information to the spokesperson. Sometimes I think business continuity professionals, we fall short because we may not be able to deliver the data that we should. And we always think that we're the ones, we should do it. And sometimes it's better to come from someone else, because again, we don't own anything. We just help with the maintenance. We help provide the information. We don't own the program. It should ultimately be the organization that owns it.
I like saying we're the steward.
Exactly.
Steward of it. Milena, do you have anything to add to that?
I definitely agree. We can definitely get sponsors and gain, followers that can vouch for us, that can influence others in that big room. And we should not be afraid to remodel the plans. We should look at all of our plans and question this. Is it still relevant? And can we do something better? If it's not used as a plan and if it's not understood by the business, what's the purpose of it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about those conversations and about what senior management wants and sees in the strategic view. And we are there to assist with that. Because I've been told that during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of business continuity professionals were not consulted. And that really surprised me, because we had the most relevant information, and if it wasn't relevant, then it was we could have sourced it very, very quickly, as opposed to them restarting the whole process and spending maybe weeks to find out what's actually critical. How many people do we need to work remotely, or can they work remotely at all, and what's really crucial. So it's important to gain those sponsors and supporters, as Lisa mentioned.
I agree. On that note, we've come to the end of our second segment. We are talking with Milena Maneva and Lisa Jones, authors of Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Today, we are talking with Lisa Jones and Milena Maneva, authors of Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. Great first and second segments, lots of good information that you're sharing with us. I really appreciate it. One of the things that I pulled out of your article that I liked, and I was hoping you could explain this a little further, is tie our actions to risks raised by the organization. Exactly what did you mean by that, and how do we go about doing that? Who'd like to go first on that one?
Milena, you should go first on that one.
Okay.
Sure. It is definitely a very difficult question, because it really depends on how risk is perceived by the organization. But in our case, I often refer to risk as the enterprise risk management department, which raises all those key risks that lie within each of the departments, and they're raised for all the risk champions, as they call them, to call out any of the issues that they face, and obviously any of the remediations that they can propose to actually resolve these. So there are a lot of, sessions that are brought by the risk teams to the senior management execs by highlighting all of these risks. Now, we can leverage off of that. We can use these risks in our planning, and we can say, well, you mentioned this is very critical risk for you, and this is a remediation for you. Does this answer, or is it aligned to the information we capture in our plans, in our BIAs or in our business continuity plans? And we should question that and add it just to make them think outside of the box and align to what is actually important. They've presented this risk to the board, and obviously the board is looking for a solution. Sometimes the solution may never come. After 2 years, this risk will still appear as amber or red, but essentially they'll say, well, actually this is no longer needed. We've replaced this process, or we replaced this issue, and etc. with the evolving technology, or this is too expensive to cover. And then they think of solutions, and we can help them. We can challenge them with adding these risks in our planning sessions. And when an incident occurs, we can always reference this back and say, well, have you considered this? And these are the sort of discussions that we meant when we wrote this.
Lisa?
And I would just add that if your organization doesn't have an enterprise risk department, which there's surprisingly companies that still don't have those things, you kind of got to be an investigator and be curious. So when you look at those critical processes, when you look at financials or reports that come out, even at a all hands meeting, the things that executives talk about are those things that they want to protect. So if they're constantly talking about, our mission statement, what within that mission statement, if we couldn't do it, that's considered, that's how you find out what the risk is. So if I say, again, we'll go back to an insurance company. If we say that we can't pay these claims, okay, so that's a big risk. What are those things that could cause us not to pay our claims? It could be we didn't get the mail from the mailroom. Our technology can go down. There could be a myriad of things. Those are things that are considered the risk. So you have to kind of look at those big ticket financial, just those things that are near and dear to executive leadership's heart, and try to just uncover what those risks could possibly be if those things could not be done.
Just to continue on with that claims example, I remember one of the items, big ticket financial issues was, what if we can't print those checks out to people? And I don't know, I've never come across anybody yet who's been able to resolve that issue with insurance companies, because nobody wants to pay $1 million for some of these special printers out there to just sit there and collect dust.
Yes. And also thinking about, and just real quick, what is the risk tolerance for your organization? If they're risk averse, then everything is going to be, you're going to have to need backups for the backups. But if you're, like my husband says, my husband always says I'm risk averse because I never want to do anything. I just look at the price and I'm like, nah, we don't want to do that.
You both mentioned like risk groups and things like that. From experience, I know that many organizations, and to your points, not everybody does, they will have a risk committee or a risk group that meets every month or quarterly or something like that. But the information and the kind of risks that they look at don't ever seem to make their way to business continuity, to even be a part of that, because the material is not for wide distribution. So how can you overcome that hurdle? I know we talked about breaking down silos, but this is a little bit different, because some of these risk committee people, they're the CFOs, the president, some very high level people that are sitting in these meetings. So how do you get your hands on that information to even know they have a specific risk or 2 or 3 identified that we might be able to help address?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what Milena said about building those relationships. If we can't get to the head table, I'm sure there's smaller tables that we can get to that may have that information. And then if they don't have the information, again, it goes back to, we can, I'm not, for lack of a better term, maybe those dog whistle things that they talk about can easily negate you to what that risk could possibly be.
If I may add, it's definitely very important to seek a seat at that table, regardless of the seniority present in those board meetings or steering committees or groups. It's very important for you as a business continuity professional to be informed of the risks of your organization, and in fact suggest remediation and say, well, actually you consider this a risk, but this department said that they've resolved this 2 months ago, or they're no longer at risk with this, so maybe you need to speak to this person, and again bridge those relationships, connect people together so they can find a solution. I wanted to mention an example that when I worked for an organization that was certified with the ISO 22301, auditors were often interested in seeing risk assessments. And a lot of the times, these risk assessments are not done by business continuity professionals, but for some reason, auditors are so interested in seeing these. So you can create one of those for your department and think, how would I answer the questions that the risk team is asking, or what are these risk assessments that the auditors are looking for? Because some of these questions can help you to answer a lot of the other planning questions that you have in your BIA.
It's interesting you mentioned audit with the risk assessments, because with business continuity is often seen as a tick box exercise or something along those lines. How do you get audit to actually understand what it is you do without them doing an internet search? Because I can guarantee you've probably both run into this, where an auditor will come along, you must have this, and they just read a website somewhere. And I'm not knocking auditors, they can't know everything that's going on, and they're good at what they do. They keep us honest. But how do you get audit on board to kind of understand that same thing that you just kind of described?
I guess as business continuity professionals, we have that availability of data. We understand our organization better than anyone really. And we can present those top critical findings. What is actually important to us? Yes, you've read this on our website, but actually this is what we consider important. And we can evidence that either with a policy or a short document summary, which says, well, this is what's actually important to us. We care about our products, services, our buildings, our people, and this is what we consider important. And when you present that to the auditor, then they will structure their audit in a different way. And again, that's tick box exercise, but they will follow your lead based on the information you present to them.
Lisa, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just definitely agree with that. I mean, if we don't introduce ourselves and explain what we do, then we will always be misrepresented in what we are trying to achieve. So we need to be ready to provide an overview of our program to anyone and everyone that will listen.
Believe it or not, we only have 3 minutes left. Would you both like to have some final thoughts? Take a minute and a half each. Let's see. We'll go with Lisa first on this one. Take a minute with any final comments.
I would just say to all of our professionals, just be encouraged in what you do. I mean, we do provide value as professionals, and we need to own that. Don't be afraid to be curious about your organization. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Push back on some things sometimes, but also kind of accept the final result and allow the organization to kind of mull it over. But don't feel like you're being, take your role as being just a provider of information, that you're here to help them achieve the things that they wanted to achieve.
Milena.
I often like to say that we should question our assumptions, and we should remember that strong leadership is crucial. We should be that trusted partner that our business needs. We should be able to communicate regardless of the language within our organization. We should align to the way that our business communicates. And we should challenge that status quo. We should lead through change, disruption, and uncertainty. And we should not be afraid to, voice our concerns. We're passionate, after all, in what we do. So we can evidence that by the work we've achieved and done. So this is all about articulating that value.
I agree with the comment on assumptions. It's unbelievable how many assumptions are out there in any organization, any program, that are never captured, and when they are captured, are never addressed, and everyone ends up going in their direction.
That's what COVID did. It showed us that.
Oh yeah, it did. Milena, Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today, and congratulations on this article, Articulating Value as a Business Continuity Professional. I know it was a hit with many professionals. And I know a lot of people are talking to you, and I'm really happy that you're both part of the Resilience Think Tank. So I really appreciate your time and expertise here today. It's been wonderful talking to you and finally meeting you after so many emails back and forth and seeing postings everywhere. And now I finally get to talk to you.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to meet in person one day.
That's the dream, isn't it? That's the dream.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Milena. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it. And everybody watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.